Now is the City, No More Distractions episode today, Janice. I'm so glad to have you, and thank you so much for taking your time to spend it with us.
Thanks for having me, Sonia. So excited to be here. Can't wait to dive in.
Yes. All right. So I met you years ago in a yoga studio, and I've been following your journey for a really long time, but maybe some of our listeners today don't know a lot about you. So why don't you give us a couple of quick highlights about your past and what brought you here, and then we'll dive into some specific questions I have for you.
Sounds good. Oh my God. So I'm trying to take myself back to when we first met. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Probably.
Went really fast. Let's see. So about myself. Well, I started way back when in medicine and studying for pre-med. And as I was studying and working as a senior lab tech, I had the honor of working at Lululemon and trying out all the yoga pants and trying out all the yoga studios. And that's kind of what led me into yoga teacher training, which is around the time that you met me. Fast forward about a year later into my teaching career, I guess you could call it a career. I always differentiate job as something that you do as a means to get somewhere, and then a career as your long-term, lifelong passion.
What really That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I like that.
So my yoga teaching career, I can officially say it now. Yes. And back then, I started out as a power yoga teacher, and I just fell in love every time I would teach a class and connect with the students. It was just so much more than kind of like, I think anyone that teaches yoga or teaches exercise or something that is a service for others, that's quote unquote not very lucrative. It's because there's a connection that we really love providing. And every time I taught class, it was just that connection that's so hard to even put into words, but you just connect with people, you connect with their breath and their bodies. And that's kind of where we met. And I think I remember you coming to class a few times. You even went for teacher training. Am I right?
Yeah, actually, I did my yoga teacher training at Honor Yoga with Susan.
Oh, no way. Okay, so we must have connected there as well. Yeah. Because if everyone here is working as a yoga teacher, we travel to so many studios.
Yeah.
We jump around a lot. Oh, okay, amazing. So then I was at Honor for a few years before the pandemic hit, really, up until the pandemic hit. And then the pandemic hit, and luckily for me, I had already been building my classes online, transitioning to YouTube, trying to provide classes that I thought would really benefit my in-person students, because you only have so much time in a yoga class. So
I know
these are breakdowns that they could do at home on their own. And then that led me into what I more recently do, which is help other yoga teachers, other wellness startups bring their businesses and their brands online into the digital space, creating a presence, creating their systems so that they can operate efficiently. Because again, if anyone's been through yoga teacher training, maybe the business of yoga and the organizational aspects of managing your business online, financially, all of that stuff hasn't really been covered. So that's really what I do now. In one sentence to summarize, I teach yoga, I teach it on my app, and I help other teachers and wellness businesses bring their businesses online.
That's awesome. I know. I'm very proud of you that you've been very like tech savvy for like a long time. Again, following you through Instagram, but also seeing you launching your own app and all of that, like you said, right before even before the pandemic. So it was so great that you felt like you had a base to keep building on. I feel like a lot of other people that don't have that background already, or that exposure, probably felt really like unbalanced.
Yeah.
So it's really good that there's somebody like you that you're willing to show other people how to do that.
That was really the intention of it, because when I started, I had no guide. I mean, back in the day, Instagram was just starting up, and what they call influencing or digital presence was basically even unknown. unheard of other than Facebook business page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having had to learn everything on my own and learning more than what I needed to, not learning what I needed to, it was just such a pain point that I wanted to remove for other people. So yeah, that was the original and still the intent of like helping people just accelerate through that pain point.
That's awesome. And I think what you said about sometimes during class, you don't feel like you take in as much as you'd like to, and being able to offer that service to your students is really important as well. Because I remember actually taking a step back. So I knew you were teaching at Honor Yoga and whatever, but I hadn't like taken your class yet. I knew of you, like I knew you on Instagram and everything. And you were one of those people that I get like that feeling of like, ooh, I really want to meet that person, right? Mm-hmm. And then one day you're like walking to the studio with like your cute outfit and whatever. But I think I was leaving from class. So I think I wasn't going to take your class. And I'm like, but I see you and I get that feeling of like, ooh, like, you know how you meet like you see a celebrity and you're like, ooh, like I want to meet that person. That's how I felt. And then I was waiting like till I actually take one of your classes. It was like a hot class. Mm-hmm. And I think it was one of those that you had recorded too. And then you like send us like an email.
Yeah.
With the recording after. And I was sitting like in the first row, and meeting you through one of those classes, I'm like, wow, this is a very humble, very genuine person. And this is a very good feeling to have when you meet someone and you see that they're very authentic and true to themselves. So
thank you for that.
That means everything.
And I try to keep it as real as possible. I mean, like at the end of the day, we're all just normal humans, or weird humans, even better is what I say. But yeah, we're all just normal people, every person. And I see a lot of personas these days.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes people are not exactly what they want you to believe they are, right?
No, and like even thinking about the word influencer, right? I see it all the time. I see parodies made of like what influencers do. And the parodies are always funny. I always laugh because the stuff that we do is like ridiculous. Like, no, you wouldn't do that if you weren't trying to create some interesting kind of content, right? And but what I do see that sometimes I'm kind of like, oh, that gives like not the best kind of name or look to the influencer look, is when there's entitlement or there's some sense of like pushing people, like getting into people's spaces and feeling the entitlement to like be in that space and inconveniencing others because they're creating content or they have more followers than someone. And I personally hope to combat that image the best I can. If there's anything I can do.
Yeah, no, that's so true. It's weird. It gives automatically, people that entitlement, that feeling of being higher or above other people, which it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because creating content is fun, and doing all those out of normal things is actually, it's very fun and it can be very empowering, especially for someone trying to break out of the mold. But then it's like, at the same time, if there is this layer of entitlement to mask some sort of insecurity or whatever it is, it no longer shows the fun part and the positive sides of influencing, and it automatically just ends up looking like, well, who does that person think she is or he is, So it's just to shed a little light on that.
No, these are all good points, because a lot of people also make fun of influencing, like you said, and they don't realize all the work that goes behind it.
Oh, so much work.
I know.
But aside from the word influencing itself, it's really just about like sharing your message. So I do strongly believe that each and every one of us is an influencer and has that influence to share, because they have that message and their own core values to express. So
absolutely,
everyone, as long as they're out there sharing their message, they're an influencer in my books.
Exactly. Anywhere around. They don't have to be on social media. Totally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally. So in terms of content, though, on Instagram, I had always noticed that you are extremely flexible, and you have a really great talent of showing your background, like a place you visit, or you've done amazing traveling trips, and you're always able to capture really beautiful moments with beautiful colors and everything so vivid. Like, I always admired that. And it focused a lot in the beginning on yoga and your transition. What was your aha moment, that big light bulb that like popped up in your head, that you realized you want to switch careers and you're done with pre-med and all the hard work you were doing there, and switching to like a full-time yoga career?
All right. Well, it was first never about Instagram or content. The first aha moment was just realizing, I think it was after a yoga class that I taught. And I just felt so connected, and I felt so good, and I just felt so alive. And that feeling, I remember actually very vividly driving home. I was like, I'm going to do it. And this thought had already been kind of playing in my mind a little bit, like, what if I just taught yoga and just like tried this out and disappointed everyone that knew that I was going for medicine and all the years I spent in science and studying. And I was like, what if, right? So months and months, maybe even a year of thinking the what if. And then after that class feeling so alive, I was in the car and I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to call my parents and I'm going to tell them that I'm going to go teach yoga full time for a year.
That's it.
And science on a pause. That's it. And, like I remember I was like feeling so hesitant and scared. And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't. And so I just decided to like call them right there on Bluetooth in the car. And they were in Asia. So I was waking them up at night. This is probably their 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. And it was like by 8 p.m. And I was like, so you guys are going to probably disown me and be so disappointed, but I've decided I'm not going to be a doctor anymore, and I'm going to go teach yoga full time.
And they died.
And they're like, what? Like they were just looking up, what? Like, no, you're joking, right? This is a nightmare. I'm not awake yet. And like, I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And they're like, I don't think so.
Wow.
I don't think you want to do that, And then I was like, okay, I'm going to hang up now. And you guys wake up, go brush your teeth, and we'll talk later. So then I got home. Probably took me an hour to get home because I was driving all over to teach yoga back in the day, and it was like an hour commute to each studio from my house. So then I got home and they called me back. I think it was like
they couldn't sleep.
They woke up. And they're like, so Daddy and I were talking about it. This is my mom. Daddy and I were talking about it, and he's very against this. He just doesn't approve. But I think you can go for it, like give yourself a shot. I was like, really? It was like Christmas to me. I was like, really?
Oh my God.
Can I really? And she's like, yeah. And then my dad's like in the background, like, oh, Janice, no. Like he was so against it. Don't worry about him. Just like give yourself a chance. Like, and then she's like, and the worst case scenario, you just go back to medicine, right? Or go get your MBA or like, So in my mind, I had always had medicine as my backup plan again. I was like, right? I'm going to give myself 1 year to teach yoga. And I'm not kidding you. I completely didn't think it was going to go anywhere. I was like, I think I was just giving myself an excuse to take 1 year of a break and go have fun and feel good while doing something that I really loved. And then I I absolutely thought that after that year, I was just going to go back to school or finish up, get like my degrees, or switch completely into a business degree and try for my MBA or something.
Yeah.
The status quo accepted degree for success, right? So yeah. I think my parents also felt that way. They're like, she's just going to BS around, have some fun, but you know, she's young, it's fine. Let her like go have fun for 1 year, and then she'll like get her butt back in the saddle, and then she'll get back to work, and like she'll make us proud, you know? So I think we all silently were thinking that, but to give myself that permission to go and have fun and spend money for a year. So I did. I started right away. I gave in my 2 weeks. My professor, who was my boss, was so supportive. And I love the guy like to death. He has been my number one mentor in the professional field since I ever had a job, I guess. And he said to me, he's like, I'm so proud of you, Janice. I think this will be better than medicine for you. And I was like,
wow. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say here? I thought I was doing great.
And he was like, no, it's not that. You're very smart. It's just that your personality, it's not the best fit for medicine. He's like, you don't like to follow rules. I was like, I guess that's true. I don't like to follow rules. I mean, I still don't like to follow rules. And if you've ever been in like a research lab or you're studying medicine, you know that you got to follow those rules, because if you don't, someone could get seriously hurt or die, right? So I was like, yes, I really like creative freedom. I was always trying to change his protocols, and he was like, just follow the like protocol. It works for a reason. And then so I told him. He was really supportive. He gifted me my very first travel trip to Barcelona. And that was what kicked off my travel. Yeah. So I started traveling. Barcelona was my first country that I traveled to other than Asia, because I went to high school in Asia for a few years. And I did bounce around like some Asian countries to visit, but Barcelona was my first real travel trip, and it just blew my mind away. And then like that with playing around on Instagram and just creating content as a yoga diary, that was my real intention with Instagram when I started, was just to like kind of share my journey of what I was doing and how it was going. It just started to go places. I started to meet people. And I always say, especially even to my clients, any prospective startups, that conversations and people are the accelerants. They are the fuel to taking you from point A to point B. Because in one conversation, you can learn so much. And knowledge is power. What you know, you only know. What you don't know can lead you to new places. So I got connected with the yoga community, with photographers, professional creators in the space, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And teaching led to international teaching, which led to the growth on my presence and led to my app. And then that kind of led to today.
Yeah, one thing at some point, it just flows.
Yeah, it does. And when we talk about following your heart, it's really about listening to those invisible whispers, is what I call it. They're like these invisible threads that have opportunities strung along them. And you get the choice every moment to either go with that thread or kind of be like, nah, that's not it, and put it aside or ignore it, right? But if you go with the thread, that you grab onto a new opportunity pearl, which leads you to another opportunity pearl. And there's just like all these branches of invisible threads happening at once. So it's been a magical journey. And I have been completely transformed from a skeptic of believing in energetics and the spiritual universe power into like someone who really believes that there's magic happening at every second around us.
That's amazing. And it also seems like you had a really good support group. Even though in the beginning your parents were a little hesitant, they probably started seeing how much you can do in that path. So then they had I'm sure they had no choice after that to support that dream.
Yes, well, it did help that they weren't here. I have to say, because then I had the choice to hit decline on the phone button. So I have to say that like distance really does do the relationship well in that sense. I had my who is now my fiance as my biggest supporter, who really said, I believe in you, you can do anything you want. And he's always been a shoulder and an ear for he's always been there. My friends were all very skeptical in the beginning. They're like, are you sure you want to do this? They're like, you work so hard. Are you positive? And then, but I think I've always had this characteristic in me that took any sort of doubt as a challenge. So I always, and someone was like, I don't think you should do that. Or like, oh, you're not going to go very far with that. Or you're throwing away your future right now. Like those are all the comments that I had to hear all the time until they started seeing something. So I took those comments and I was like, all right, yeah, maybe you're right. You know, it still got to me, but I was like, but if I prove you wrong, you will be so.
And you did.
I did. Although, like, I think my secret there is not to overshare. So with a lot of people who weren't, who expressed concern about my future, I just like limited how much I was sharing with them about what was happening, what was going on. They just knew that I was teaching yoga, but then they like started to see the transition. And then years later, they're like, honestly, like you have the coolest job out of anyone I've ever met. And I was like,
yes.
I was like, want to come to this side. I'll help you. You have talent.
I love it. But actually, this is a really good point about sharing. And I think about that a lot because I know that for everybody, there is a limit sometimes of how much you want to share out there, and especially in social media. But I know you're a very authentic person. Like I said, you're very open and you like sharing things about your life and the things that you do. And did you ever feel like sometimes you might be sharing too much, or were you afraid of people maybe being jealous of your success, or people would want to harm you in one way or the other? Like, I feel like this is one of the things that sometimes you have to deal with when you're so open there, right, on social media. But at the same time, I feel like this is one of the unique traits you have that helped you in your success. I feel like people like that aspect of you, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what is your feedback though, as the person that is actually doing the sharing.
You know, the interesting thing is more lately have I been feeling like I want to pull back on what I want to share. Whereas that was never the case when I first started, because I was sharing only one aspect, and that was my yoga practice or my yoga teaching. And with that, it felt very safe because all I was doing was sharing my experience. So the way I kind of go by it is I follow my my number one rule, which is always to be transparent and authentic and honest. That is the one, like, what I believe in most. And nowadays, when I ask myself about sharing, it's really about like, what's the intention of sharing? What is the purpose of it? Because if you're just sharing to get an ego boost or something, I'll get that from my fiance. I'll just be like, I need an ego boost. Tell me that I'm pretty or something like that.
I love it.
But if it's sharing because you want to empower people to feel like they have that opportunity to chase their dreams and to achieve their goals, and that's kind of my purpose of sharing. It was that purpose for teaching yoga and sharing my practice. I want to show the moments of getting into a pose, or what I realized about workshopping into getting into a pose. And it's still kind of like that with what I share about my life and how much it's changed and what we're building and what we're like moving towards and all the scary parts. But yes, more so lately as I've started to open up about the business growth and what we've been doing in terms of growing the business and helping other people grow their businesses, it has brought on a lot more feelings of that kind of, they don't want to hear it. You know, it's a little bit too far where it's no longer relatable for them to feel that they can follow in the footsteps towards success. So that's kind of where lately I've been feeling a little bit less motivated to share. But anytime there's something that still falls within my core principles of being honest, transparent, and wanting to share my story of how we've like transformed through all these years, then I choose to share that.
Yeah.
If that is a story. The other thing is there definitely is a safety concern, right? So I think I picked this one back up a few years ago. So I've been doing this for a while, but I have had cases where people tend to get a little bit creepy, a lot of it creepy. I've had messages that said, hey, I just saw that you were at this place, but I didn't see you here. I'm here now. And I'm like, yes, okay, good. This is why you try not to post
that way. Yeah, that's scary. Yeah, doing it right at the same time and knowing that somebody might be stalking you.
Yeah, these are kind of the considerations of the industry of going more public and being in the public eye and everything. As a business coach now and mentor now, I tend to have a lot of clients that don't want to be in the public eye. Social media is not their jam. They're not interested. And it's kind of navigating, okay, how do we still build your social presence, your digital presence without putting you as that face. You are still the face, but you can decide how open you are or how public you are, like with the access that you provide to people. And a lot of them have that concern, especially the ones who are building much larger businesses. It's kind of like privacy is a big concern of theirs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's good to hear that you're focusing and you're helping your clients in different ways, because Instagram has taken such a big part in marketing. And when business owners are just trying to focus on a product and market the product and focus on the quality and, you know, focusing on production, marketing is like a whole other sector. And it's not about them. They just want to showcase the product. But then you're always afraid that your audience is more interested about you than the product, right?
Yeah, yes, it's even more complicated when you are the product. So again, like as I mentor a lot of people, some of them want the public figure status where they are in the public eye and they are engaging with the public. And it's just about giving them the options that they can always step off. So if you look at my business, there's Om Life Living, there's Om Life Business, there's Janice Liu. Even though I am the product and I started it, I've created it in a way where I can actually step off of it in the future. So let's say that Om Life Living one day becomes multiple teachers, or it even gets bought over by someone else. I'm hoping that never happens. Just like it's a possibility, right?
Yeah.
It's always kind of having that foresight and the big vision of knowing like what you're building, where you're going, what you want, all of that.
Yeah, I love that. Listening to Janice is a great reminder of how important it is to stay true to oneself. Janice was able to build a successful career because she was always honest to herself. Patanjali's second sutra, Satya, reminds us to not lie and be truthful. Janice is such a cheerful person with an open heart, but also strategic and a great businesswoman. I admire her attention to detail
and cannot wait to share with you the second part of this interview, where we dive into how one can find their passion or calling and how to stay true to the self no matter what. To learn more about Namaste City and this podcast, please visit namastecitylife.com and feel free to drop us a message by visiting the Contact Us page. You can follow Namaste City on Instagram or Facebook. If you have not already done so, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Thanks for listening to No More Distractions by Namaste City, hosted by me, Sonia. Today's episode guest was Janice Liu from Om Life Living. You can connect with her through her personal Instagram account at Janice Liu and also through her website at omlifeliving.com. The audio production for this episode was done by TechBeats at TechBeats Studio.